Released in 2018, Marvel's Spider-Man was a huge success, selling over 20 million copies and becoming the best-selling title on the PlayStation 4 ever. So here's everything that you need to know about Marvel's Spider-Man from beginning to end. As is tradition with all good Spider-Man tales, this adventure kicks off in the bedroom of the main man himself, Peter Parker. Now, despite being a superhero, he's still living in his cramped, messy apartment amidst the hustle and bustle of New York City. From the items strewn around his bedroom, like his sketches of different costumes, discarded gadgets, and newspaper clippings showing Spider-Man's heroics over the last 8 years, we know we're going to be thrown right into the thick of the action. No Spider-Man origin story here. Our dude's a veteran, and it's not long before it's time to get to work. While taking a nap, Peter is awoken by the urgent blare of his phone's police scanner. The distress call reveals that a SWAT team is on the verge of launching an audacious raid on Fisk Tower, the imposing stronghold that belongs to the notorious Wilson Kingpin Fisk, the undisputed kingpin of crime in New York City. The police would be fools to try to take down Fisk without the help of a certain web-slinging hero, though. So Peter suits up and begins swinging his way towards their location. On his way to Fisk Tower, Spider-Man receives an urgent call from his trusted ally, Captain Yuri Watanabe of the police force. A squad of officers has been cornered by Fisk's henchmen in Times Square and needs our hero's assistance. This proves to be just a minor distraction, however, a great chance for players to get to grips with what Spidey can really do. Soon, it's on to the main event. Spider-Man arrives at Fisk Tower where he's confronted by waves of mercenaries, and some of them are armed with riot shields and rocket launchers. Still, they're no match for our hero, who uses his spider abilities to scale elevator shafts and outmaneuver the violent thugs. Upon reaching Fisk's lavish penthouse, it's time for our first boss battle. Well, that was easy, but as Kingpin warns, his absence is bound to create chaos in the criminal underworld. A few days later, Peter Parker is back to his actual day job, which in this game involves working at Octavius Laboratories. That's right, he's a lab assistant and not a reporter this time. No more getting shouted at by the boss at the Daily Bugle. Woohoo! Dr. Octavius is obsessed with creating brain-powered prosthetic limbs. However, following a dispute with Mayor Norman Osborn, his funding is pulled, and this is devastating news for both him and Peter. Nevertheless, Peter keeps using the lab. But one night, while repairing his Spider-Man suit, Octavius walks in. The scientist wrongly assumes that Peter is a friend of Spider-Man and is more than happy to help him create advanced tech for the suit. Nice! In need of some respite, Peter pays a visit to his beloved Aunt May, who works at the Feast homeless shelter. We find out that the shelter is paid for by Martin Lee, a philanthropist and a very useful guy to know, who is in no way evil. But before they can all really get to know each other, there's a break-in at an auction house. An auction house that's due to sell off Wilson Fisk's estate. Now that right there could be a problem. Arriving at the scene, Peter, as Spider-Man, sees a patrol of mysterious figures wearing Oni or demon masks and using some sort of dark energy. They've taken hostages and appear to be looking for something that once belonged to Fisk. Entering stealth mode, Spider-Man must take them out quietly and find out what they're up to. Although, he's not the only one sneaking around. It's at this point that we're introduced to Mary Jane, an investigative reporter who is now Peter's ex-girlfriend. It turns out that she now works for the Daily Bugle. Looking for dirt on Fisk, MJ manages to find the file the demons are looking for and escapes with the help of Spider-Man. Oh, and she already knows that Peter is Spider-Man at this point. Anyways, on their way out, Peter swipes one of the demon's masks, hoping his new friend Martin Lee, who considers himself a historian, might be able to tell him more about these new adversaries. Never a dull moment. Another robbery occurs at a jewelry store, and the perpetrator turns out to be none other than Shocker, an evil electrical villain who has somehow managed to break out of Raft Prison. He's soon dealt with swiftly by our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but something tells me we haven't seen the last of Shocker, aka Herman Schultz. Now, with that out of the way, Peter returns to Feast with the mask and some questions for Lee. However, Lee only reveals that the mask is somehow related to demons and ominously warns Peter that he and MJ may want to drop their investigations or risk getting hurt. Returning back to Otto Octavius' office, Peter arrives just as Norman Osborn declares that he's shutting down operations for good. Osborn thinks the work being done there is just too dangerous, although it appears that he and Otto have had some bad blood that goes back to their college days. Either way, Peter Parker's now out of a day job. Good thing there'll always be crime to fight, though. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, another robbery, this time at a bank. Spidey shows up and it's… Shocker? Again? How does he keep breaking out of prison? Well, apparently officers are being brainwashed, but Shocker won't reveal who he's working for fear of being killed. Time to go see our friend Yuri at the station. Captain Watanabe reveals that the demons have been raiding Fisk properties all night. So, in preparation for their next attack, Spider-Man and Officer Jefferson Davis are assigned to a building they expect will be hit next. Now, Davis proves to be a worthy sidekick as he helps to scout out the building and pursue the demons in a car chase across the city after it turns out they've been stealing the Kingpin's weapons. Then, when Spider-Man is about to be run over by a demon in a truck, Officer Davis saves the day by ramming the truck with his squad car. Gosh, what a hero! Swinging back to his apartment for some much-needed rest, a jobless, penniless Peter discovers that he's been evicted and all of his possessions have been thrown away. These possessions include a USB stick with some important Spidey-related info on it. Thankfully, his mission to track it down at the garbage depot is successful, so he can go back to worrying about where he's going to sleep for the night. The sofa at the homeless shelter seems like his best bet. The next morning, Peter wakes up and speaks to Martin Lee, who explains that he'll be out of town for a while. Lee asks Peter to look after the shelter with Aunt May, since the shelter is the best part of him. A phone call from MJ reveals that Officer Davis is going to be honored by Mayor Osborn later that day at a political rally, and she invites Peter along. Could this be a chance for the two to rekindle their romantic feelings? Nope. In typical fashion, as he makes his way towards the ceremony, Spider-Man is alerted to a disturbance at Fisk Tower, where the demons are again up to no good. Talk about bad timing! Through an intercepted phone call from an imprisoned Fisk, Spider-Man strikes a deal with the Kingpin, promising to protect Fisk's workers in exchange for information about the rival gang. It's kinda like that old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. After thwarting the demons yet again, Peter swings by the Osborn rally just in time to applaud the officer who saved him and spend some time with his former love interest. Only, well, the demons, they're not done yet. There's a series of violent explosions, and Peter gets knocked unconscious. Martin Lee appears, revealing himself as the villainous Mr. Negative, and proceeds to slaughter innocent civilians. As MJ attends to Peter, we, the player, take on the role of a terrified young boy in the crowd named Miles Morales. Does this sound familiar? This boy frantically searches for his dad, who was standing at the podium when the explosions went off. That's right, his father is none other than Officer Jefferson Davis. And tragically, well, he did not survive. Rest in peace, Officer Davis. Oh, and make sure you channel that anger and sadness in a positive way, young Morales. Alright, switching back to Peter, the hunt is now on for Mr. Lee, aka Mr. Negative. Working off a tip from MJ that directs him to a recycling center owned by Lee, Spider-Man infiltrates the area, eliminating bad guys and discovering plenty of weapons, explosives, and a map targeting several of Norman Osborn's campaign offices. Turns out, Mr. Negative isn't a fan of the mayor, who survived the blasts earlier on. Spider-Man also uncovers a staging area for the planned attacks and heads there next. When he's just about done taking out the bad guys, another group of mercenaries called the Silver Sable shows up with their high-tech gear. It turns out they work for Osborn, and the situation in the city is about to get a whole lot more tense. Returning to Feast, Peter proposes a new assistant for his Aunt May, a young teen named Miles Morales. Peter also snoops around Martin Li's office looking for more clues about his evil schemes. However, Parker is soon interrupted when Mr. Li unexpectedly returns, threatening Peter, but saying that he and MJ will be safe as long as they keep their noses out of his business. Yeah, right, as if that's gonna happen. During a lull in all the action, Otto Octavius calls Peter with some really good news. He's found some new investors and his ludicrous limbs project can now resume. At the lab, there's a bunch of new equipment, and Peter can have his old job back. So yay! We learn more about Otto and Osborn's relationship during college, and that the two of them worked together to form Oscorp until they separated. Interesting. Over dinner, MJ tells Peter about a chop shop owned by a bad dude named Tombstone and claims that he was building a special vehicle for Martin Li with the intention of transporting something known only as the Devil's Breath. Joining forces once more, MJ and Spider-Man unite to unravel the enigma that lies before them. Soon enough, those dastardly demons are on the attack again, this time invading the home of Norman Osborn's chief financial officer, Charles Standish. Spider-Man arrives just in time to rescue Standish, who lets on that Osborn has been funding Devil's Breath for years, but that's all he knows. The CFO directs Peter to a man called Dr. Isaac Delaney for more answers. Upon visiting Delaney, who appears to be attending a Spider-Man-themed Halloween party, Peter is just beaten to him by who else but Mr. Negative. The villain uses his dark powers of manipulation to force Delaney to shoot himself in the head, but not before he gives up yet another name, Dr. Morgan Michaels. It transpires that Dr. Michaels helped to develop Devil's Breath, which was initially intended as a miracle drug to cure diseases, but currently, it has the power to cause an epidemic on a global scale. Martin Li's plan is to steal the dangerous drug that Osborn funded and wreak havoc with it, destroying his rival in the process. Of course, Osborn and his Silver Sable are not gonna let that happen willingly, so they move Dr. Morgan Michaels to a safe house. Mr. Negative and the demons soon catch up though, and despite the efforts of Spider-Man and an epic boss battle in a negative dimension, Martin Li gets away with the sample of Devil's Breath that he was after. MJ helps to track down Li and discovers that he's going to unleash Devil's Breath at Grand Central Station via a dispersal unit created by Oscorp that's on display there. This leads to a round 2 between Spidey and Mr. Negative and a battle in the subway while Mary Jane defuses the bomb. Spider-Man comes out on top and Martin Li is arrested. Is this game over? Nope, not even close. A quick trip to the lab shows worrying signs for Peter as Otto Octavius is displaying some disturbing behavior. Is he controlling the metallic arms? Or are they controlling him? And also, there's some bad news coming from Rikers Island prison as well, as multiple dangerous felons have escaped. Not only that, but the police convoy transporting the Devil's Breath has been attacked and the sample has been stolen. Gosh, what a headache! After mopping up several of the escapees, there's another breakout at the Raft, the New York prison that houses the worst of the worst. Now, supervillains including Electro, Rhino, Scorpion, Vulture, and Mr. Negative are all on the loose. But here's the real kicker. There's a new villain in town, and his name is Dr. Octopus, formerly known as Otto Octavius. Going up against all these formidable foes, collectively known as the Sinister Six, doesn't work out so well for Spider-Man, and he's beaten into submission. Just as Kingpin predicted, the city is in complete chaos. It's not long before Devil's Breath is released and more innocent civilians suffer. All the while, Silver Sable is running riot too, vying with the escaped convicts and the Sinister Six for a defeated Spider-Man's attention. It turns out that Otto Octavius is the one who released Devil's Breath, and he's been using his scientific knowledge to make his fellow villains even stronger. With all of this on his plate, the news that Aunt May isn't feeling so good is hard to stomach for Peter Parker. But as always, Mary Jane can be counted on to help out in a tricky situation. Upon sneaking into Norman Osborn's penthouse, she finds out that Norman continued to work on Devil's Breath in order to save his son Harry. In Osborn's secret lab, MJ also discovers videos of clinical trials that turned Martin Li into Mr. Negative using Devil's Breath. Ah, now the rivalry makes more sense. After Spider-Man has recovered from his beating, he proceeds to take down the Sinister Six in a series of high-octane boss battles. He defeats Vulture, Electro, Scorpion, and Rhino. Next, Spider-Man teams up with Silver Sable to go after Lee, who has kidnapped Osborn. Another incredible duel takes place in black and white, and just as it looks like Spidey's going to come out on top, Dr. Octopus throws a spanner in the works, nabbing Osborn and getting the better of Spider-Man. Silver Sable take an injured Spider-Man back to the Feast shelter to recover, and once he's able to stand again, our hero seeks a final encounter with his former boss. As he heads off, a strange-colored spider that hitched a ride with MJ from Osborn's office bites Miles Morales. Yay! The final showdown fittingly takes place at the Osborn building, where Spider-Man arrives just in time to save Norman Osborn and beat up Dr. Octopus. Otto Octavius learns that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but more importantly, Peter obtains the anti-serum. Peter now has a gut-wrenching choice: use the serum to save Aunt May, or give the serum to doctors to produce enough for the rest of the city. Of course, he does the right thing and hands over the serum. Aunt May does succumb to Devil's Breath poisoning, but not before she's able to tell Peter that she's known about his alter ego for some time and that she's so proud of him. After Aunt May's passing, Peter stays with Miles Morales while waiting for his new apartment, and it turns out that the two have much more in common than they thought.